Hello, species. This is to tell you about the value nature system. This is going to be run by the cartoon characters. This is also going to be run by. This is where if we could afford it, me if I could afford it, figure out someone who's going to help me afford it, have the ancient gaming system connect with Campus Marcius, connect with as a cartoon. In other words, with a desktop, as is shown semi in the sign up part of the ancient gaming system, which has to be made better. I'm not even sure if it's functional yet. And so this, when you press one of the draws, we're also going to have the point of possession and the point of real of shadow possession. As the comma is the shadow of possession, and the period is the point of real possession. And this is going to be a campus system. This is going to be a science system. A different way though. This is where we're going to make a value nature system to bridge the sick one that left people forsaken, can't defend it as positive, but as what needs to hide from the nature of positive that is not as criminal and insidious nature, because it can't be legalized, because then you can't sustain yourself with from defend homelands from states and areas with anyone with simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively sequenced true and identities not stolen free speech. So preemptively, we had originally still maintained self-value, maintained by a breaching method that came from semi-ancient times, specifically knowing that each modern nation would have to react as fact-cheaping nature, have to value only let it realized, originally and still maintained the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts, and nature, blamed to other things other than themselves. So I want to put a nature of simultaneous natures of release. I want to do this by making a virtual partner with me. And then like this will be able to sell this out. In other words, and then be self-driven. But to get it going, in other words, I want to have, this is what I'm trying to say. This is working with the identity of its identity of relationship to itself as what is going to cause positive or negative value nature progressions per unobstructed native rights, even though we're not Native American. We're noting that too, that's value to us to understand that for everyone. And remember, we're a species nature of volume forsaken here. That is the nature's nature, where it has no criminal foreign influences, no physical delusions, self-value, not by accident, much worse. Formal fact achievements every day. That not by accident is reliant upon natures of differences between nations. Each position of fact treatment nature. States and areas are of a nature so hurt, so long sustained as pseudo-positive. And as as criminal insidiousness natures, as wrongdoers, as wrongdoing. I'm not a lawyer, not a police form. They're not a criminal. These are people trying to make innocent people criminals, and these are people roles. Everyone is roles blaming the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, action natures on other things, others themselves, not by accident. This is a quality of punk fact treatment nature, misprision criminalities with, for example, with the term bullying, because they're using it for identity thefts. They're pretending people to fake locations, pretending not to understand. They're handing that is facilitated, for example, as a fact cheaping nature racket, where we have delusions wrought misprision criminality as the experts on the law, originally and still, not by accident. You can't tell about American slavery, American history. You can't tell about Jim Crow laws unless you're talking about how those courts, those branches of governments were offensive evidence reception predators, as victim predators maintained by a breaching organized crime method effectively entrenched here before our founders' births, forcing no one to say anything about the shared policing. If anyone was found out, white, colored, Native Americans, A through Z, colonists A through Z, nations A through Z, even the kings missed what was his playing identity nature's connections to itself. That's why each individual is simultaneously a group nature, simultaneously value as a species nature of volume too, as a nature of volume in individual, grouped, sex. It's as the nature of volume, but it's distinctly and non-distinctly, because this identity is distinctly and non-distinctly onto each nature of its volume, finite, active, progressive, and the sequence nature before this and beyond this, that is at the same time gaining value as a nature of volume, as its own, as we're only a little part of, like a little cell of our body is a part, its complete identity is simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature to the person's body, to our body, which is it. Fake branches sit, then fall. Three natures of wall, but only two natures of relationship to itself. And that's the difference of Earth simultaneously distinct and non-distinct relationship to the rest of space. It's our simultaneously distinct and non-distinct relationship to this identity's identity of relationship to itself. And that's the value of that. Because when that value of that, now that humanity is not allowing our nature of volume without criminal foreign influences and physical delusion, as a value, as a quality of fact treatment nature now, as criminal insidiousness nature. That's caused to negative value nature progressions, acts and natures like predicate acts. This is caused to why we are manifest going into space, while we have still the zoning laws and the torture methods that were used against our founders with their stolen identities recorded to maintain originally and still highly criminal courts, highly criminal police, forging names, switching all kind of crime methods, worse than witch trials. Every day, hear many pray. With those fake nations in relationship to those differences, they're also maintaining the peace, maintained as criminal and seditious nature weapons, roles with other natures of crime that are all bonded per the one that made the pathology of the homes, specifically to cause negative value nature progressions, knowing that there would be live progressions, standing live progression cover up nature's misprision, whole bunch of liars, interbranch, private, all tied to them, intercampuses, needed to hide their live progression by using already facilitated. This is in particular, this is an on-off campuses crime method with databases attached to what they're really using, furthering most the overt criminal enterprises for things like drugs and stuff like that. Things like the politics, even though even the people involved are victim predators. Pseudo sophistication needs to look at comparison. Can't use the complete nature. See, they're saying that people have mental diagnosis. That's why Hartford, Connecticut, and New York City people stacking. That's what's wrong with shootings in those areas and stuff. But meanwhile, this is really tied to an identity theft racket, database crime method. This is sustaining not let free speech. At the same time, they're stacking databases and whole groups to sequence shifts. They stack so many people's names. So we have a principal child offender that was put in prison reportedly by the news. Before that, he was recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with all kinds of on all campuses abuses of kids, with people on the sex offender registry too. People in their family making fake sex offender registry maps, spreading lies about me everywhere I go too. Because I tried to report the proven child offenders, also further recorded tied to more. They didn't let me speak, and they arrested me for harassment for calling back the person who made the confessions regarding worse too. And it was already recorded before that. These are people involved with crimes with a bunch of co-defendants, a few co-defendants, and a bunch of other federal criminal co-defendants with those associated with those co-defendants and their families of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Now, see, these are people that are preventing me free speech since I was a kid as identity theft crime rules, putting people media into fake locations. Then those are people campuses, interstates crime acts, then in the Trade Center attack. Then crime acts with interbranch police on and off campuses and with other evidence perception crimes offensive, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, how not let told, on and off CCSU, on and off Trinity College. Then they keep the identities of these colleges in collusion with the various natures of courts and police that are using them for themselves. Like the former director of the FBI, his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, not far from Trinity College, that location too. And see, he wasn't supposed to be his lawyer. He had been warned by a Judge Nations or a Judge Winters, which that's in the minutes of a 2006 district court case, which defendant, former director of the FBI, had the three, had all these people associated with him with crime acts against me and against kids. Crime roles facilitated to it per their roles with offensive evidence crimes through time with those locations too. A whole bunch of people from Weathersfield are recorded and confessed. I don't know this Charlie Bowles, but he's also recorded and confessed through time on and off CCSU and database crimes roles with women in his family also, with people hurting girls and boys with drugs and things like that. And these are Washington, D.C. Trade Center attack family tied people with all kinds of natures of database crime roles. And in a pattern, crimes with people on Church Street, right near the Samuel Dick's house, right near the Webb house, then / Webb Stevens, with Old Weathersfield, where George Washington had to come right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, even with the French general's help, having had to leave overt slavery with color, mixed in with what our organized crime countering bodies were criminally foreign influenced to maintain worse than obfuscated, not understood, which is that and how our founders didn't have free speech. How James Madison left us obligations that to free speech. We have this identity theft crime rackets, and see, they have wire crime methods. If you call on the phone to have them fix what they did, the crime acts they do, they'll they'll lie about what was recorded on the phone because no one's watching. So they can't respond online. This is why there are also crime rules with online aggression, identity theft crime acts, because that aggression, if you entertain it to it, and it makes you look like you were in locations with those people that are real, sequence relationships to those people that were real, conversations with those people that are real, that aren't. When people come up to you with like loaded questions in life and stuff like that, especially people that were associated with DACA, this is timed to relationships to databases. This is lying to people like, each age of fact cheaping nature is in a trap. This is how we have the pathology of Little Hartford, Weathersfield, West Hartford, Bloomfield. The way it's a little pathology that was associated with the fact cheaping nature, slavery, and torture of our founders. They did not have free speech. They left us to demonstrate sub rosa criminally foreign influence statutes being used sequentially when the guy Comey, or reportedly named Comey, on on TV said that they have the right to lie. The recorded director, people associated with former director of the FBI using the right to lie criminally, where they don't have the right to lie in cases, using courts and using campuses and databases in private ones sicker than most killers, associated with and as a minority of people associated with intercities, with the other methods and natures and motivations and actors associated with the actual shooters and shootings, like on off Garden Street in Hartford, Connecticut, all throughout Hartford. These are the same intercity people associated on and off Hartford Hospital, associated with police forms, foreign and domestic, various natures of criminal enterprise, private, needing to hide the same personal, finite, active, sequential, and identity theft crime acts rules, illusions. That's what they have right off on and off. Look at the nature of the homes around Hartford Hospital. See, now this is not the hospital. Healthcare is great, but we have natures of badges associated with mental criminality, original and still. In other words, experts on psychology recorded originally and still roles with all kinds of natures of crime, formal drug crimes, crimes with gangs, crimes with their patients, and with overt criminal enterprise overtly sick before they were even caught with that. There are crimes with campuses, with policing of the internet, with talking about that. Then they lie. They were using the right to lie the way they don't originally instill. They're pretending that's just because we have criminally foreign influence fact treatments originally. Still, we have no free speech speaking for and worse, having spoken for each area, sickly distinctly, to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. This also shows how none have learned and everyone are blaming the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature, and of people's value forsaken. Their actual value is not money. This is before wild value, money is value and beyond it. And before, but we're in a trap. You can't go after the people and the money because that was juxtaposed. Where sometimes, that's not our target. Our target is the nature of value. There's different natures of wealth as well, which is important here, and because we have people that are multi-citizens, all that they're locked into valuing what they could only fathom as positive, as criminal insidiousness nature, as modern nations, and as an identity of negative value nature progression. So the value nature system is coming to, ancient gaming system in campus for all. But see, what I'm trying to talk about is the simultaneous natures of relief. I want to put first for what, and who no one would reach out for first. So, and this is also going to be realizing that we're going to stop all kinds of crimes and hurt and bad things at once, and those are relied on. And these are where we only have politics that are using grouped opinion natures. And see, that's roles with what is using them as weapons, keeping the real cause of negative value nature progressions, action natures, blamed on other things themselves. They're pretending LGBTQ. No one wants to fight with people about sexual things. They're making strangers fight. No one cares. The only time when someone wants to report actual crime acts with kids, everyone's up there. Oh, and then they call they sequence shift too. They call you names. Then you respond. They call you hate. When you try to speak calm to counter abuses of the kids, they attack. They forge names, switch names. They attach you to fake people, fake conversations with people. They're preventing people from using their voices, from yelling when we are supposed to. In other words, when there is no means to counter where and as and how, we have recorded originally still overt criminal enterprises, private ones still valued, and interbranching collusion and intercampuses. database crimes, other private database crimes, other overtly sick maintained, because these are connections between houses next to the campuses, intercities, facilitated to collusion with what they don't even understand, because they're attaching everyone to fake. In other words, each position of time is a victim predator. I'm not saying they're not victims, but they're victim predators making opinions. I'm asking to report this now. See, but they're interbranch, various natures of courts and of judges retired and standing, forging names, switching names, crime acts roles, criminal uses, crime acts roles with the families of their courts, with the police forms of them, leading up to in the trade center contact context facilitated for them as the same ones facilitated to it. And then since with crime acts with leading up to and then in the 2006 case leading up, with criminal uses of CCSU and of Trinity College leading up to that, criminal uses of WFSP, drug clicks and police forms, foreign and domestic, associated with fire departments, criminally involved with them too, with investigators, criminal uses, crime rolls with them, with the locations around WFSB, around Fox Connecticut News, various natures of fake news, crime acts. Those were needed by them to hide their life progressions, for personal evidence, crime acts roles in cases. These are people tied to a proven sequence shift inside the Ninth Circuit from the Trade Center attack context. Right before the Trade Center attack, they'd shown the judges post dated from inside the court and appeared late papers that had been post proven afterwards, time stamped on time and delivered on time before the trial, before the panel of judges, or not trial, part of a case slash S. That proven led up to the 2006 now Connecticut in district court with a whole bunch of people involved with New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts, criminally with that, foreign and domestic military, including Kuwaiti military, crime acts rules, because these are people that were crime acts rules leading up to in the Trade Center that as fake sides, because these are crime acts rules with prison leaderships, sexual circles and stuff like that. Only let realize because also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated like all that tied to the on and off campuses roles with the proven child offenders and the ones with the leaders of the kids proven and further recorded. See how they're not letting me speak now because I have various natures of courts. They have themselves that they forcing people to just they're needing to pretend things in backgrounds they can't. In other words, like why aren't you working and stuff like that, because they're in the background knowing they're stacking federal crime acts. I want free speech. I need it now. These are people that use Sammy Vega and criminal justice corruption with Mexico, with Puerto Rico, with Hartford, undercover fakes, because they're victims, but they're victim predators. These are people recorded, confessed, involved with crimes facilitated before the Ray Hernandez brought him into it. That was a sequence shift role facilitated to them with the crimes leading up to the 2006 case, with a whole bunch of people of associated federal crimes roles and with other different crime acts illusions and with databases, whole bunch of opinions that could be demonstrated dishonest because they were affected to it. This is a maintained outcome because when I went to the same grammar school, no, I didn't know about anyone being sexually abused or medically abused, but that was is recorded involved with those kind of acts are recorded involved. See, we have women judges forging names, switching names in sequence, and men and women with the courts involved with them. Crimes with the police forms on and off fake campuses. We have officers faking, arresting things, putting fake things into databases. These are states and areas and kept needing to hide live aggressions from presidents. That's how they're using this is in the branches individually grouped and together, kept needing to hide things from presidents, criminal foreign influence. They're actually recorded natures, not by accident. So what they're doing is pretending to be against what they were for, which shows there are crime acts against Paul Manafort. There are crime acts and cases against people that worked for Paul Manafort. Their identity theft crime acts against them. Crime acts against me for that. They attached me to fake conversations about um, my father. They pretended I had conversations about police recording things, forging names, switching names with the Leahy family. Whole bunch of people associated with a Rick Champfillon, O'Brien family, criminally involved through time. Now they're involved with the child defender campuses and with various natures of religious spots, how used at the same time. Criminally, just like fake sensibilities for little topics, but they don't really care about that. They don't really care about when someone's trying to talk about. They're keeping overall convictions and opinions about things fake with experts originally and still used for this crime method that juxtaposed a whole bunch of people to a whole bunch of other motivations, natures, needs, roles, interests to hide the lie, to be breaching screens and tools. You fools. Pretend Campus Marcius calls you home again, again, again.